Good afternoon. This is Eric Van Sickle reporting from City Hall in Waverly, and I'm with Rod Drenkow of the Bremer County Historical Society. And this month, a touring exhibit from made by the University of Iowa is in town talking about, and it's advantageous for this area because there's a lot of this heritage here in Waverly. Why don't you tell me about this, Rod?
Well, the exhibit is part of the center at the University of Iowa to try to have a greater awareness of the things that it is.
You're doing a thing.
Yeah, we're doing a thing. Yeah. A greater awareness of the impact that immigrants had on the history of Iowa, and obviously Iowa is a state of immigrants, and one of the largest immigrants in Iowa is are people that came from Germany. I think over 50%, close to 60% of the people in Iowa can trace an ancestor back to Germany, so it's one of the largest immigrant groups in the state. And in Waverly, Waverly has very strong heritage of German immigration. So we thought it would be a really good thing to have this exhibit here in Waverly. The University of Iowa agreed to lend it to us for several weeks. So it's here at Civic Center. This weekend it will be at St. Paul's Church and School on Saturday and Sunday, and then it goes to the library for a couple of weeks. And we will have it on exhibit, weather permitting, at Oktoberfest at the end of the month. So people that come to Oktoberfest can see it there.
So how did you get in contact with the university to get this, and how did you hear about this?
Well, the university actually contacted us through the state historical society group. I mean, all of the county historical societies belong to the State Historical Society kind of information group. So when things like this come forward, we get notification of it. They actually had a symposium in Iowa City last September that a couple of people from Waverly were able to attend on German immigration in Iowa. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, but they're very good at getting information on exhibits like this out to the people who have an interest in it.
And I see here that this exhibit is looks like about 11 panels.
There are 12 panels.
12 panels.
There are 12 panels, and they tell the story of German immigration to Iowa from the early 1830s. And what's interesting is not so much dates and people and places, but the impact that German immigration had on the culture in Iowa. I mean, such things as the music and the beer halls and the polka dancing and the newspapers, all of the things that impacted what we come to know as our favorite state of Iowa.
And of course, looks like Tab's doing cameras with us, but that was Tab Ray, the Leisure Services Director here in Waverly. So what do you think is now, of course, Waverly has a special connection to the country of Germany. Tell those who aren't up with that. Why don't you describe that?
Well, Waverly has a sister city relationship with Eisenach, Germany. Eisenach is the small city where Martin Luther basically stayed in Wartburg Castle and translated the Bible from Latin to German, so that he was very adamant that people be able to read the Bible, and in order for them to read it, it had to be in the local language. We've had a sister city relationship with Eisenach for a number of years. We have an organization here in Waverly, the Sister City organization, that has a board of directors, and we have a number of students that are invited every year from Eisenach to come and attend Waverly Shellrock High School. We have an exchange of people back and forth between Waverly and Eisenach. In October, we're going to have a delegation from Eisenach that's going to come and attend homecoming festivities at Wartburg.
But
so
miss the Oktoberfest.
They're going to miss. I think they're going to miss the Oktoberfest, won't they, Mr. Mayor? I think they're going home before that. No, they won't be here before that. The Oktoberfest is misnamed since it's being held in September.
Well, of course, that's traditional.
We call it the Septemberfest.
But of course, that's from my understanding, it's the traditional date for when it was started.
The idea behind Oktoberfest is obviously a harvest festival. And in Germany, when they finished the harvest, they would have this large harvest festival, kind of like we have Thanksgiving.
Right.
And they would have everybody to get together and do this. Here in Waverly, we have to fit it into our civic schedule and also look at what the weather is like. And the weather is much more stable in September than it is in the end of October.
Well, like I said, I read that in Munich, where it began, it started like last weekend of September. It headed into October. So.
Yes, they do that now too.
Chuck, why don't you come on in here? We have also Mayor Chuck Infelt of the city of Waverly. Rob, why don't you stay in too,
Sure.
just so we can get you both at the same time. So Chuck, what do you feel about having this exhibit here in Waverly throughout the month of September?
We are a college river town with a rich heritage, which really includes our German heritage because it's so fundamental to who we are here in Waverly. Now, this German progressive side to our community has enabled us to prosper. You remember that after the revolution in 1848 in Germany, they had a great influx of German people when democracy kind of failed there. But all that progressive thought, maybe a little anti-authority at times, but very, very progressive thought.
I always say I come from a long line of draft dodgers because a lot of the settlers that came here from Germany to the Waverly area came in the 1870s and the early 1880s. That was a time when Germany was being consolidated in one country and they instituted universal conscription. So all males of a certain age had to serve in the army. And a lot of them hightailed it to the United States, including my great-grandfather.
And with that was the development of some strong churches. And St. Paul's Lutheran Church, which anchors a lot of Waverly, we're both, Rod and I, attend. But they do a lot of wonderful things in terms of sense of vocation. This comes from the German heritage, from Martin Luther, that we all have a vocation. We're all called to serve others, whether it's in business, and we had a strong business community that did just that, whether it's teaching, whether it's working the Parks District here, whatever you're doing, it's a calling. And so we were molded with this ability to be humble but strong.
So how do you think the German heritage that Iowa has basically developed how the German heritage helped develop the state of Iowa?
Well, I think very clearly that the work ethic that is a very strong part of German heritage, emphasis on family, the emphasis on church. I think all of those things really had a strong impact on the way that Iowa's developed.
And a bit left brain. The Germans could do the bridges. The Germans could do the buildings. There was a great talent for building. So the building up of a lot of Iowa has taken place because the gifts that the German community brought to the Iowa community.
All right, and so Rod, what do you think that people who come to see this will get out of this, whether it's here at the City Hall, over at St. Paul's, or at the library throughout the month? What do you think people will get out of this?
Well, I hope they have a better sense of their history, and even if they are not of German ancestry, that they have a better sense of how Iowa has grown and how it's developed. I hope that they come away with this with a stronger understanding of where we came from and how we got to where we are.
Okay, so let's take a look through here. Maybe take you guys to stay in front here just to point things out here. So, so we talk this welcoming panel talking about statehood from from when the states became incorporated in 1846 to the early part of the next century. A lot of Germans became the largest ethnic group in the state, it says. And of course, a lot of people consider Germans in Iowa with the Amana colonies, as it mentions there, being that it was a lot of German, of course, a different form of communism, where people were, from what I understand, people were trying to be communal.
It was a society that had communal ownership of the farms and the woolen mills and the beer breweries and all of that. I think that the interesting thing, one of the things that I found very enlightening was the reason that we have so many German immigrants. Actually, most of the immigrants came from several countries: Germany, the Netherlands, Norway. And the reason we have so many immigrants coming from those countries is that they actually had recruiting agents that would go to those countries and recruit settlers to come to Iowa to fill up the state, because we had all of this empty land. So the developers would send people out. Heritage of differences, and I think that's what makes Iowa such a wonderful place to live. That we celebrate our differences. We don't argue about our differences.
And of course, the second panel here, it says that when the Sauk, Meskwaki, and Ho-Chunks were forced from the west of the Mississippi, it started with the French were the first settlers here, but 7,100 Germans resided here by 1850.
That's why Dubuque is pronounced Dubuque and not
Dubuque
or something. But I've always said it was interesting when they started the Indian casinos, because I thought it was only just we had stolen Iowa from them, and now they were trying to win it back. So.
And then the diversity of the German society, not just Germany itself, but it says here Prussia, Schleswig-Holstein, Swabia, Austria.
Well, Germany wasn't really a country until it was unified in the 1870s, I think. And so you had all of these little areas that basically were their own states. And there was as much difference between people that lived in Swabia and that lived in Hanover as there would be from people that lived in the United States or live in Brazil. I mean, they maybe had a common language. It was spoken a little bit differently. Sometimes the dialects were difficult to understand. But they had a lot of different cultural differences. And it wasn't a monolith by any stretch of imagination.
And talk about some of the settlers' first professions. A lot of them came farmers, but then they brought in merchants, tradesmen, and military officers. Right. And of course, a lot of woolen mills, especially in the Amana area. And then it looks like it says the Waterloo Boy.
The tractor.
The tractor.
The famous Waterloo Boy tractor.
John Froelich and Louis Woodry created it down in Waterloo. And then Whitmer and Whitmer Insurance, Rath, and the former meatpacking plant in Waterloo.
A lot of these businesses were started by German immigrants. The Germans provided, the community life was very rich. They brought their love of music, the love of dance, all of those kinds of things they brought along with them. So, that became a major part of what they brought with them and part of our culture. The love of celebrations like Oktoberfest, where all the neighbors get together.
And the top says to place a premium on education, which of course Iowa had been known for many years. That one of the biggest education states in the nation. And then
of course, Germans are known for their beer.
Yeah, so they probably suffered through Prohibition.
They did suffer through Prohibition. Matter of fact, as this panel says, many German Iowans voted Republican, but they felt abandoned by party leaders over Prohibition. And so many of them became disaffected with the Republican Party because they thought the Republicans were supporting Prohibition to too large an extent. The Germans love their beer.
The Missouri Synod Lutheran Church has great traditions. They've always, they're an interesting body right now. We have St. John's Lutheran Church here, but when their church leaders get together, they may be fairly conservative on many issues, socially and ethically. It depends on the issue. But when it comes to the beer, they all agree.
They all agree.
And they all have a meeting, and then they often go out for the beer.
Yeah.
Right, and then
Well, World War I was, this panel is talking about World War I. It was a crisis for the German communities because so many of them kept their heritage and their language and their schools and their churches. In World War I, there was a very strong emphasis to de-Germanize everything. A lot of the German language newspapers were closed.
the German Shepherd was renamed Police Dogs.
Exactly, yeah. The Frankfurter was renamed the Hot Dog. There are all kinds of things like that that happened. Sauerkraut was renamed Liberty Cabbage. Yeah. And it was a real reaction against Germans. Probably in Iowa not quite as badly as others because we had such a large German population. But there were some issues with it.
Even here after World War II, you saw the great identification with the America being born. And the ethnic side of who we are was not very strong. But if you went to a Norwegian college or another, it might be very strong. But we weren't, now we've recaptured that because enough time has gone by.
Yeah, and of course, Wartburg College is named after Wartburg Castle in Eisenach, so that sort of strengthens the ties between Waverly and Eisenach, Germany.
And in the chapel there has German subscript stuff.
And of course, now this talks about the post World War I here.
Right.
As you're talking about how people have been reclaiming their heritage after the Great War.
Right, and there was a lot of between World War I and World War II. There was a real strong, kind of a real strong emphasis to have to downplay German heritage and make everyone want to become more American and not really play up the fact that they had a German heritage, that their ancestors came from Germany, and particularly World War I and World War II created the same kind of anti-German feelings.
Plus we were the German community had such a large presence here in America that it really didn't need to be ethnic in the ways that other ethnic communities would have.
And of course, World War II, because of the way that Hitler led the nation, it was really got the most other Americans' cockles raised. So
I think World War II, the reaction against Germans living in the United States, or people of German heritage, wasn't as great as World War I because they'd already been here for a generation or two. And they were much more closely identified as Americans than as German Americans. When I go somewhere, I'm an American. I don't identify myself as a German American. But back then, I think they did. So I don't think that issue was quite as much.
It was more on the Japanese Americans that were interred because they looked different than they looked, and people thought that they could probably spy on us for Japan, even though a lot of them were loyal Americans.
And a much smaller ethnic group. I mean, you couldn't put all of the German Americans or Americans of German heritage in concentration camps.
You wouldn't have much of a nation
left. You wouldn't
left.
have many people left. But I think, the last panel here, talks about, we're trying to reclaim our heritage. I mean, I've been back to Germany. I've seen the little village that my great-grandparents came from. I've written, just for my own family, a biography of, my family's coming here from Germany. Things like what Waverly has done with Sister City and with Oktoberfest, acknowledging our German heritage and trying to reclaim that. I think that it's really something that this whole exhibit kind of emphasizes, that we're embracing our German heritage, and we're trying to reclaim some of that we may have lost by trying to in the past decades is try to de-emphasize that heritage.
Mm-hmm. And then now the University of Iowa had, I guess a student from the University of Iowa had made all this. We have that information back at the office. So, right. But now, of course, once again, why don't you just tell where this exhibit will be and when?
Sure. It will be here at the Civic Center in the atrium until Friday afternoon. I think we'll pack it up late Friday afternoon. Then it's going to be displayed at St. Paul's Lutheran Church and School, which is
over your shoulder.
Right, First Street Northwest, and people are certainly welcome to come into the narthex and view it there. And it will then go to Waverly Public Library on Monday, and it will be at the library all of next week and the following week until Oktoberfest, which is Friday. I don't remember the exact date, 22nd, I think. So these panels will be set up at Oktoberfest, weather permitting.
22nd and 23rd.
22nd and 23rd, okay. So they will be inside the Oktoberfest grounds, and I would certainly encourage people when they're at Oktoberfest to take a few minutes and see what it is that we're actually celebrating.
And Chuck, what do you want to add about this?
I think that all the ethnics, communities that have enriched our American culture need to be uplifted, and I think it's time in Waverly that we give an extra appreciation for our German heritage and its ability to be progressive and to be inclusive. One thing that we've really done here in America is we have an inclusivity that the Germans have led. It shows at Wartburg College, our international students are amongst the largest in the state. We get up to African American and international students, 20+%. So it's a really rich heritage. Because the German community has been so dominant in America, they almost are leaving so much of America, they get taken for granted. And then with World War I and World War II, it isn't always anything other than American history. To have it an Oktoberfest is to lift up this whole progressive, inclusive, vibrant, everyone for everyone. That is marked also by Martin Luther and all of Protestantism and Catholicism as well. So we're on a momentum. We thank the Germans for their contribution.
And what do you think this means to have this here on so close to the city's second Oktoberfest?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity. I'm glad that the University of Iowa allowed us to have this display this time of the year. I know we had to, they had to kind of move their schedule around so that we could have it here during Oktoberfest, and I really appreciate that because it was a great fit with what we're trying to do with Oktoberfest.
Rod gets a lot of credit here from the city.
All right. Well, and it looks like we have a nice little group here that's viewing this all here, but we'll just sign off for now. This is Eric Van Sickle reporting for Waverly Newspaper.